Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll be getting started in about 2 or 3 minutes. So get yourself settled and we'll see you then.
Should we go ahead and get started, Jake?
Yeah, let's do it. It looks like we're right on time here. So welcome, everyone. I know some folks will probably be trickling in, but they can join in a little bit. Are we recording this, Britt?
We are, yeah. So let's do housekeeping up top. Again, yeah, welcome to the Saved and Shared Reports training. We are, just to cover the housekeeping, we are recording this session. We're going to send it out to everybody who registered tomorrow. So whether you attended or not, you'll get a recording and a follow-up email. And we are also going to be using Zoom's Q&A feature to do questions today. So if you have questions, you can start entering them in there now. We will try to answer some throughout the presentation, but we also have a Q&A section at the end. If you're new to Zoom webinars, you'll also see that there is an upvote function that you can use to bubble your questions up to the top, and those of your friends and colleagues too. So we'll use the most popular and bubbled up questions to fuel our Q&A portion at the end. Cool.
Great. So let's get started. So just by way of introduction, hi again. For those who we haven't met, I'm Jake. I'm the Director of Product here at Handshake. And this is my colleague, Britt, who I'm sure you've seen him in your inbox, and you've probably joined us on various webinars and other events. So good to see you both, good to see us both, and good to see all of you again. So what will we be doing over the next 45 minutes or so? We're going to give you a quick update of the updates we've made to reporting in the platform over the past few months, some visibility into some updates that are coming in the second half of this fall season, and a demo of the newly released Shared and Saved Reports feature. We'll definitely leave some time for Q&A, and we'll definitely talk through all the different types of reports you can run and ways in which you can share that with your teams and really operate that on scale. So, as Britt mentioned, please drop questions into the Zoom Q&A. So I think I've seen a couple come in already. So feel free to use that as your, as your place to ask questions. We'll be trying to get to those towards the end, and if there's ones you like, just upvote them, and we'll prioritize the ones that get a lot of upvotes. So just a quick reminder, when we set out at the beginning of this year, certainly we weren't expecting this year to play out in the way it did. But one of the key focuses for the product and for our career services partnerships was building self-service analytics. This has remained a goal throughout the year, and I'm happy to report on some of these updates as the manifestation, at least at one stage in that. So this will continue to be a focus for ours as we enter this new school year and into next year as well. A quick reminder of our product planning process. Folks may have seen these in other training sessions or webinars. We are really right now in this sort of going from 5 to 1 phase. We had a number of advisory group meetings related to analytics and reporting. They gave very solid feedback. This release went live with a beta group, with an alpha group about a month ago, a smaller beta group about 2 weeks ago, and now we're live as of last week with all of you. So really an ability for us to learn and make sure that we iron out a lot of those kinks before we go live. And now we're entering a new cycle. So we encourage your feedback. Feel free to message our support teams and let us know what's working and what's not for you, because there will be more coming. So here we are. We're at the iterate section. All right, so what happened in 2020 so far? So I'm going to quickly walk through some history here. We released merged reports and data definitions. I believe this was definitely over summer. I think it was in July, where we took the student, employer, and staff report templates, and we combined a bunch of fields into those templates so that you don't need to merge various reports on different field IDs. So you can create a very simple output through those consolidated reports. The other report types, as we'll see in the demo, still exist. So if there's, let's say, a career fair or an appointments type report that you want to run, you can still go to appointments and you don't need to navigate these super large report templates. We've also added descriptions for all field types, or for all fields. So give some visibility into what that ID specifically means, or if there's 4 date fields, what each date field exactly represents, so that you actually know what you're reporting on. We released saved and shared reports recently, and Brett, I'll kick it over to you to talk through some of this stuff, because I think I actually took some of your lines away here, but take it away.
No, that's actually, we were going to have you do this section, but I'm happy to talk about saved and shared reports.
Sure.
This is obviously the meat of what we're going to be talking about today. Jake is going to do a live demo of this later on in today's session, but this is live right now, so you can currently use this new interface to save your reports natively in Handshake. You no longer need to maintain a very extensive bookmarks bar for your favorite reports. They can be saved in Handshake. It should be noted that the links you have bookmarked previously will still work in this new interface. You're also going to have access to a library of popular reports that Handshake has vetted, including a new set of reports that let you visualize virtual fair data, which is very exciting. I believe, Jake, there are 9 of them in the system now.
Yes, there's 9 for career fairs specifically. There's about 45 across the board.
Yeah, so again, these are templates that you can iterate on top of, but they are meant to be pre-built, ready-to-use reports on virtual fairs and a variety of other topics if you are looking for a way to get started. And then finally, if you're saving your own reports, you can make them visible just to yourself, or you can share them with other users who have access to reporting at your school. So we've actually heard this is a really great way if you are a reporting admin at your school and you want other people to have access to reporting, but you don't necessarily want them creating their own reports. You can provide these templates for them so that they can run their reports on a regular basis without having to create them themselves. So another nice way to streamline your work and make it more efficient in Handshake. Cool. And Jake, do you want to talk about ideas for future updates to this one?
Sure. As we go live with this first release, we know that there's a handful of things that we've talked through with our advisory board. We've talked to a number of partners on this. We see these as likely updates in the future, but based on the feedback from early usage, we'll be prioritizing these and getting these out the door in potentially different order. So the ability to share to the entire Handshake network. Right now, Handshake as an institution is the only entity that's able to create these templates and share them beyond an individual school. And we'll walk through how that works for an individual school to share within your staff, but not to the entire network. The reason we pulled back on this is just ensuring a high quality. So we want to make this a library for everyone. that there's a lot of crowdsourcing and a lot of sharing between schools, and we see that as a long-term goal. We just want to make sure that we ensure a level of quality so that you're not, sifting through stuff that others make that may not be relevant. So we're hanging tight on that. Similarly, popularity rankings. So, the most commonly used reports, pushing those out based on different needs within different topic areas. We can start collecting information and making that visible to you. Same with recommendations. So if there's particular areas or particular reports we think are best, we'll be pushing those out, whether it's in newsletters or in the product itself, where you're on, a particular appointments page and we say this might be an important report to run, and we can kind of push you to the pre-built stuff that way. Additional foldering and permissioning. So, perhaps ability to share a report with an individual as opposed to the larger group. Ability to create folders or buckets of reports that might be visible to other folks. All this kind of things you might expect with, with other sort of software platforms where you have labels and tags and things like that, but to be determined on that. And lastly, lightweight sharing without a save. So we'll be talking through how you create a saved report, and being able to give it a name, give it a description, and share that with your colleagues. We're also thinking through a way of making that a really simple process that you can create kind of a throwaway report. Like, hey, we need to run this data. We'll pull it out of the system, but we don't need to create kind of a name and a description or anything else around it. Coming later this fall, we are including, and this sits on top of saved reports, the ability to schedule reports out of the system itself. So being able to determine the frequency, the format, and the destination, all of which will be configured in Handshake. That may take the form of, every day I want a CSV file sent to either my email or sent to an SFTP location, which is essentially a secure file drop, kind of like a Dropbox. So that your IT team can then push that into Salesforce, push that into Oracle, into PeopleSoft, or any other database that might be relevant. You can also push it to your email, in which case, you can do with that report what you need. So that's coming. We're working on that now. And it should be a really nice thing to sit on top of saved reports so that you can create those saved, standardized reports and automate that data out of Handshake and into whatever third-party system or operational tool you need to use. So without further ado, let's jump into a demo. Great. So I am looking at the Handshake application, and I am set to essentially a fake user under a fake account, so that we're not looking at real student data. We're not logged in under any particular account. And you'll notice that if you go to the analytics page, this has been updated. A couple notes. One is the invoices tab, which used to be on the analytics page, is now in a separate location. So invoices now sits alongside these other two options under data. If you go to analytics, you'll have two options, reports and dashboards. Dashboards is unchanged by this release. So all those existing dashboards that you're used to, those will still be there. And you just tab over there. We'll be focusing today on reports. So these reports listed here are everything that is visible to you now to the larger community. So as Handshake gets requested from our partners, as we think of new good reports to be sharing out, our internal teams will be creating and vetting high quality reports and pushing them out to the entire network. So when you log in and you're interested in, let's say, appointments, you can click on appointments, and out of the box, these reports will be scoped to your school. And if you click on any one of them, you'll be redirected into that report. So let's do that. So let's go into appointments by staff. And again, we're looking at a fake school with fake data. So don't look too deeply at the actual results here. So this is a report you may be familiar with. So we're looking at the number of appointments by staff member. Again, this is a fake school, so we have 3 staff members and one of them had 3 appointments, the other had 1 appointment. On this view, because I as a user own this, I can make changes. So, let's say I want to add the ID of the appointment. Okay, cool. I've added the ID of the appointment. If I hit run, this report will rerun, and I can confirm those changes. Now, when you confirm those changes, they are visible to everyone else. So if you own a report that you make visible to others, then you have to be careful about that. So this is looking at a report that you yourself own. And let's go through creating the report itself. So you create report, give it a name. So I'm going to call this test report. Give it a description. This is a test for our demo. And let's make this about employers. Okay. And I'm going to initially keep this report private to me. You have 3 options. One is keep your report private to you. The other is share with your school. And as I mentioned, we disabled this last option for a little bit. We may turn it on in the future. Right now, it's only visible to Handshake users themselves. So I'm going to make this private to just me, probably because I'm testing it out and I can always change that later. So I'm going to create the new report. And once it spins up, I can set up any way I want. So let's look at the count of employers by industry. Okay, so let's say the count of employers by industry name, and I can hit run. When I hit run, it'll run this on my data itself. I can edit various visualizations. These come out of the box. The system knows exactly, kind of recommends the best type of visualization depending on the data you're looking at. This one looks pretty good. That's all I pretty much need. And now I'm going to save that report. When I save that report, it's now officially in the database, and it's something I can come back to when I go back to my reports index page or my reports overview. If I wanted to favorite this, like let's say this was something that was particularly special, click the favorite button. Or if you wanted to edit anything about this, you just go into the edit field. And let's say you wanted to share that with your entire school, you would just click share with school, and then everyone in your school would have visibility to that report. So coming back here, I did want to show a little bit about the filters on the left-hand side. So similar to other pages, you can create filters and save those filters off. Let's say you're just looking at employer, reports that are about employers. Create these filter, save this filter, say this is my employers filter, give it a description, and now this is the set of reports that kind of serves as a foldering function. It's not exactly a folder, but it's a way you can craft a set of reports with particular criteria and save that off. You can also search by keyword. So, if you're curious, particularly amongst this growing list of community-based reports, if you're interested in, something related to appointments, you just search that term, and this is everything related to appointments. Even if it's not in the appointments report type, it might be from a different report, for example. You can also click on show favorites, and this will list only the items that you yourself have favorited under your account. So that's kind of the happy path: creating a report, favoriting it, changing the visibility settings. I do want to quickly walk through the ability to essentially get a deep link to a report. So folks may have a number of reports that live in our help center. So you may find a number of these live in our help center, and there's these common insights reports, right? So let's just go to this link. So we have populated a number of these reports into the library itself. So you don't necessarily need to go back to the Help Center, but let's say you have a number of reports saved in your Excel or on your notepad or anything on your local computer. These links will continue to work. So let's open any one of these. And when you get to that page, you'll see that data load with your school's data, and essentially the ability to duplicate that report. So it's a way of essentially saving it off as your own. So you'll notice that it's created by Handshake. It's just called report template since we don't have a name for it yet. And this one I think we just clicked on was drop in appointments by time of day. Great. So if I click duplicate report, it essentially creates a copy of that report, and now I'm the owner of it, right? So now this is a report like anything else. I'm the owner. It's set to private by default, so it's not shared with anyone else, and you can come in and edit, essentially edit any details about that. So I'm actually going to call this appointments. Appointments by time of day, and keep it private to myself. And now it's going to run on my data set, or I could change the filters or change anything about it. You'll see it appear there. That same duplicate function occurs when you're looking at somebody else's report, let's say a colleague's report, or the existing Handshake reports. You can just duplicate it, make it your own, make any tweaks to it. If you have a lot of reports that are somewhat similar in nature, but do have different filters, slightly different criteria, just duplicate it, make a change, duplicate it, make a change, and then you have, just make sure you give it the right names. So I think that's the overview. I did want to leave some time for Q&A because I think that's where some of the meat of this discussion is going to be.
Yeah, and Jake, it actually might be worth staying in the demo view so that we can illustrate a couple of things, because I think there are some questions that might lend themselves to that.
Great.
But shall I just lob some at you?
Yeah, go for it.
Perfect. Okay, and again, please do go in, even if you don't have questions, take a look at the ones that were asked and feel free to upvote them if they're of interest to you, because I'm going to go from top to bottom here. So our top question is from Stephanie, who shared and then asked, in order to go paperless, we've loaded a lot of valuable information into the resource library for our students to access 24/7. Any way to run reports to see how many people are using different articles within the resource library? I know we've gotten this question in the past. Jake, do you have any thoughts on exposing that data?
So we don't expose it currently. Could we in the future? Yes, definitely. We can also run some of that data on the back end. So in the near term, Stephanie, if you're particularly curious, that's something in either support or your relationship manager can help with. So there is a workaround there, but through this flow, resource specific usage is not included.
Cool. Our next question comes from Sharetta, and she's asking specifically about the career fair reporting. Mentions that you can't check students into a virtual event. Do you want to talk a little bit about how we handle quote unquote check-ins for virtual events, and then also kind of the landscape for virtual fair reporting? Yeah,
so you'll notice there are 10 or so career fair reports pre-built. So if you log in, you'll see those there. Check-ins for a virtual event occur when a student joins a particular session, and then they're deemed as checked in for the entire event. So if they were to have, say, signed up for 5 one-on-one sessions and they only joined one of them, they'd still be checked in for the entire event, but a no-show for 4 of those 5 sessions. So that is now visible under the career fairs report type. And I'm going to go to an existing one. Let's see, total student participants. Total students checked in by career fair. There you go. And we can point to this specific field here. You'll see under virtual fair attendees, I think. Let's look for checked in. You'll see checked in yes, no under virtual career fair participants, and that'll show you whether or not the student checked in. under this fake school, you'll notice that we had 23 students check in, where virtual career fair participants checked in is yes.
Perfect. And so again, to note, there is no process of checking a student in that you have to facilitate. As soon as they log in for one of their sessions, they will be marked as checked in, and then you'll be able to see attendance at each of the individual sessions they signed up for as well. And those reports are all live right now, so you can access them via reporting, via Insights, I should say. All right, next one from Abby. I have links for reports built previously. Is it possible to now save these without having to rebuild them, or will we need to start from scratch to build and save? We have a great answer to this one, don't we, Jake?
Yeah, so we just walked through this, but just to give you a visibility again. So when you have any of those old links, they tend to look like this. They have this really long URL, they'll, a bunch of gobbledygook in the URL. That automatically gets translated into essentially a default template. All you got to do is click on that link. You'll be dropped into the report itself. Those will continue to exist, and just hit duplicate report. You'll give it a name, you'll give it a description, and it's now officially yours to do with it what you want. And you can delete that old text file when you're done.
Awesome. Cool. Moving right along. So the next question is, if you try to create a report and realize you need to start over, is there a way to delete it? This person was playing around last night and wanted to scrap a report but didn't see an option.
Yes, there is a way to delete. So you have to save it first. So if you're playing around with the report, and this may change slightly shortly, but it should be pretty self-explanatory. So I'm going to say test report 2, keep it private. If you were to leave this page right now, you wouldn't be saved, right? Because you haven't officially saved it. So there's nothing to delete. We are making a change such that we're making it a little bit more clear, so you don't have to give it a name essentially before you save it. Once you save it, and you go back to edit it, now if you click edit, you should see, we'll be adding, sorry, there was a delete button, we removed it, we'll be adding it back in. That's the short answer. We just updated the edit field here. So yes, you'll be able to delete it.
Coming soon. Awesome. Okay, next question. Do you plan to allow admins to get a full list of all saved reports that are being run within their instance? So this is, I think, essentially asking for an audit log of reports that have been run in the past.
Exposing that, we actually haven't heard that before, but certainly we can look into it. We do have the ability to run that information, and it's something that our support team or the relationship manager can help with. But baking that into the product itself to give you visibility into what reports are run is, I guess, not on the immediate roadmap, but it's good information to hear.
Yeah, definitely something that I would bring up with your relationship manager, Sabine. It's an interesting idea. I think we would want to learn more about how you would use that, how regularly you would need to look at it, because it could ultimately be a lot of really granular information. So just looking to understand the use case a little bit better there. Great question. All right, a question from Jeffrey. It looks like your pre-built fair reports show aggregated data. Am I missing the disaggregated so that I can see who actually showed? Is that a plan for the future? So, go ahead, Jake.
Well, here, you can address it as I bring it up here.
I was going to say first, so the pre-built reports are meant to be a jumping off point for you, so they are not indicative of like the full scope of data that's available. You can build reports that show you the individual attendees of a fair. The templates that we wanted to get out first were kind of about high-level reporting on the success of your fair. So I think in the future, if we don't have one already, we could build more reports that show you granularly which students attended, but you can definitely build them yourself too. Is that correct, Jake?
Yeah. So some of them are aggregate, some of them are not, but as Britt said, these are jumping off points. So you can make edits to any one of these and then save it off as your own version. And I'd recommend doing that particularly for events or fairs that have unique IDs. So what you'll want to do, and some of these have pre-built filters in place, you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of filters here. You can add a new filter by going to career fairs name, and I add a filter. And now if I want to filter this to something specifically, it'll autocomplete with all your fairs names. So I'm going to say this is my, carrier mock fair. I'm going to rerun this data, and it should rerun focused filter just to that specific fair. The reason our pre-built reports don't include your fairs is by the very nature of the fact that it's a generic report, so it wouldn't have your fair specific filters in place by default. So you'll just go into that filter, type in the fair name, and then it would take that cross-section data.
Cool. All right. So Larry asked, do you have a timeline for when scheduled reports will launch this fall, since we are already in the fall semester?
I don't have a specific date, unfortunately, but we are in active development on it. So we'll likely be doing a beta rollout as well, and we'll be doing some marketing around that. So we'll reach out if folks want to kind of get some hands on it early than others. But it's an active development. I think October is probably a realistic time frame, but we'll have more information on that.
Yeah, so we always, when we know things are coming within the semester, we want to let you know that they're coming later this semester. As we nail down a more specific date, we will share that with you via the normal channels. So stay tuned. All right, we've got another virtual fairs reporting question here from Toretta again. Can we get reports of employers that use the Handshake video versus their own link, so an external video provider? And can we see which group and one-on-one sessions students signed up for with employers? So I know the second one you definitely can, and we just sort of talked about how to pull individualized lists with students and the sessions that they're in. I'll also mention that we just launched a new sessions details page that lets you see a chronological list of all of the sessions in your fair and which students and employers are associated with them. So you'll be able to pull that in analytics, and you'll also be able to see it before and during the fair as it's happening. Just a little side note there. But Jake, can you speak to seeing the video provider for different sessions?
Yeah, so you get a, in the virtual career fair sessions view within your career fairs template, there's a field called virtual link. You'll notice it says link to video. So if you want to list out all of your sessions and all the external links, you should be able to run that. If that field is null, which for all Handshake hosted videos, that would be a null field. But if you want to see an external link, say like Teams, Microsoft, Meetup, whatever that link is, that will give you that link for every single session. What we don't do is aggregate that by provider. Like, we're not intelligently reading that link and going, oh, that's a Microsoft Teams link or that's a Zoom link. But that's something your team might be able to, easily kind of do some data analysis after.
Perfect. Yeah, so to recap, if you use the virtual link field, a null value means that they hosted in Handshake, and any other value will be the actual link that they used to host the session externally. Okay, we've got a question from Megan. Hey, Megan. Can you please explain why the room-only and non-room-only reports are still separated? If you do a customizable report, can these be reported out together? So this is asking specifically about interviews.
Yeah. I don't have a great answer offhand, so I'll just start with that. We can definitely look into why they were separated historically, if there's an option to merge them deliberately. So we might need to.
Yeah, Jake, I think the context is that they used to be in two separate explorers. There was like an explorer for room-only interviews and then a separate one for all other interviews.
Yeah. Yeah, so probably
cool.
Need to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, Megan, it sounds like that's probably something we can discuss offline with you. Cool. Okay, another question. Can we create folders at each of our respective campuses to organize our reports, or is the only way to really group them by choosing report type? I know Jake mentioned that a foldering system is an update that we're considering for the future. So depending on how we see people using this over the next couple of weeks and months, it's something we could dig into. But for right now, Jake, do you want to talk about how you could kind of use filtering potentially to separate things out?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a workaround, no doubt. So, as I mentioned, a couple things we're thinking about adding. One is sort of a discrete filter, folder, give that folder a name, put items in that folder, and it puts a wrapper around it. The other would be adding visibility for particular career centers. So similar to what we recently released with Notes, where you can say that a report is visible to a career center. That's something that we're considering adding in the future for that use case. In the interim, this search field will search on the name of the report. So if you wanted to prefix that report with an acronym or any other string text that you think would be a good way of segmenting it, again, it's not perfect, but you can create that name spacing, build that search, save off the filter with that search, and it serves as sort of a de facto folder.
Yeah, I agree. I think strong naming convention and a saved search would be your best bet for now. Cool. All right, next question. If you make the report private, others can still see it in the list of reports, right? Just can't dig in and access the report. So the answer to that one is no. If you make it private, it's only going to show up in your list. If you make it visible to your institution, then they will be able to see it and click into it. They won't be able to edit the template itself, but they will be able to make a duplicate of the report and use it and save it themselves if they want. So if you make it private, only you can see it. Is that right, Jake?
Correct.
How'd I do?
Perfect.
Question from Kushal. Is there a limit to the number of reports that you can save? To my knowledge, there is not. Go crazy.
Nope. Yeah, go crazy.
Cool. Okay. Next one from Robert. Hey, Robert. Is there a way to only show a particular author's report? Does the search by keyword look at the author value?
I believe it does. Unfortunately, everything is called Handshake in this current view. I believe it does. Give it a quick test. I'll be doing that right after this call, but I'm pretty confident that searches on author.
Cool. All righty. So Jeffrey asked, what's the logic behind not releasing some of our data? Shouldn't we be able to access all of our data when we want?
Yeah, so I'll address that. So it's not that we're withholding it. It's mainly just the kind of work to get it exposed in these particular views. So making sure that it's accessible in a way that's understandable. Data models are sometimes quite tricky. They don't always show what you think they show, and sometimes they're quite confusing. So there's no philosophical objection to that. It's really just a matter of prioritizing which ones make the most sense to expose at what time.
Awesome. So we had a question from Christy, and I'm actually typing out a response here. Christy said, I have a coworker who's trying to access the report section, and it's telling her that she's not authenticated to view this page. How do we fix? So there's a permission that needs to be enabled on your account to access the reporting section of Handshake. I am going to publicly post the link to the reporting article, the permissions article. So you just need to have an admin go in and add that permission to their account, and they should be able to access it.
Yeah, I'll add to that there are certain instances that aren't necessarily introduced with this release, but that we've seen from a handful of support tickets where you may get an authentication message. All you need to do is clear your cache, which you can do in your browser, and our support team can help with that as well. If you clear your cache and refresh, sometimes that definitely fixes that specific problem. That sounds like what you're describing.
Cool. We have another really good question from Megan. So Megan asked, if you create a report that you want to add to Handshake and school, are there more criteria for naming conventions or other fields that pop up, like what school posted it? So Megan's asking specifically about sharing, I think, reports with the Handshake network, which we actually decided to scale back for now. So there is not a way for you to create a report, save it, and share it with the network. We're thinking through what we would want the vetting process to look like, and actually we're thinking through the answer to your question, like what context needs to be shared with a report that you created so that it makes sense across all of the schools that you're sharing it with. Yeah, so we actually scaled that one back. You can only share currently with yourself or your institution. And I know there was a question further down about like institution-specific labels that you might include in a report. So there are a lot of different little cases that we would need to consider so that people really understood. So for now, Handshake is the only institution that's actually publishing reports universally. And we are thinking through how we might kind of have a vetting process and a documentation process for future ones, because we know you all are building really fantastic reports too. So we'll keep thinking about that and keep you posted.
Yep. Great. And yeah, to Britt's point, we want to make sure it's high quality. There may be a review process where Handshake allows only certain individuals or certain teams or even certain reports to be shared publicly, at least on day one.
Okay, Beth has a great question. Will there be a way to transfer ownership of reports for admins, especially if someone leaves the organization?
Right now that feature is not built, but it's sitting in our backlog. So it's definitely an update that we can make in the future. Again, our support team can help with this. So if someone does leave your org, rest assured the reports are not gone, they're not deleted. We could probably manually change the ownership on the back end if that's necessary.
Yeah, and in the interim, I think, again, this is a little bit of work, but if you know someone's leaving, you're going to deactivate their account, you could just make copies of their reports as well as a way to make sure you grab them.
Yep.
Okay, we've got a question from Vicky. In the future, could there be a way to link reports together where pulling data is a multi-step / multi-report process? For example, first I want to pull a list of all employers who participated in on-campus interviews. Then I want to pull the email addresses of all contacts at those organizations so I can email them. So Vicky's talking about you essentially have two reports, you would download them and then merge them. Mm-hmm. So some way to link reports and a process box to explain the sequencing of running each report would be great. Another way, Vicky, that we can solve this too is by putting all of that data in the same bucket. So like you being able to run a report that pulls employers who participated in on-campus interviews and also the contacts associated with them in the same reporting structure. Jake, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. If there's the ability, if those fields exist on the same template, then you can merge the two. And a lot of the work we did over the summer on students, employers, and staff should help with a lot of that merging. That said, there still may be questions you have that necessarily require a 2-step or 3-step process, just the nature of any sort of data analysis. Yeah, totally hear you. I mean, the one way to work around it is build a naming convention and create a filter. So you call it your, monthly student export, phase 1 or whatever the title is, and then create a save filter around that particular acronym. That's one way to do it. Right now, if we launch foldering in the future or labeling in the future, that could be another good way to do it as well.
Perfect. Yeah, so something we'll look to continue like chipping away at those use cases, but right now, again, just to reiterate something Jake shared, the employers, students, and staff templates, or they were previously called explorers, they have an expanded set of data points that you can access. So we did aggregate a lot of the data into those ones so that you could run more cross-functional reports like the one you're discussing, but that doesn't necessarily cover all use cases. So is that right, Jake?
Correct.
Essentially? Cool.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna do a time check. We've just got 2 minutes left, so we'll run through a couple more questions. Megan asked, will there be an option in the future to only share a report with select people as opposed to the entire school? And Megan added on and said, if you share a URL with someone else at another Handshake school, they can duplicate the report and then save, correct? So I think I can answer both of these actually. So Megan, to answer your question, oh, they're both Megans, okay. The first Megan asked about sharing a report with select people. So this is something we're considering for the future, kind of a permissioning system or like share with my career center only. So something we're considering down the line. And then to Megan's question, the answer is yes. So if you create a report and you share, actually Jake, correct me if I'm wrong if this has changed, because previously if you shared that URL with someone at a different school, it would apply all of the same filters, just using that school's data instead of your own. So would that still work in this case?
If that URL is private, then it wouldn't, right? Because you're sharing something that isn't allowed to be shared. If it was visible to someone, and basically there's no sharing between schools until an update, as we talked about, that lightweight sharing that can essentially create a link. Which is an update we hope to have live later this fall or into kind of early winter. So.
Okay, and that is a bit of a change because again, previously the URLs, like they had all of the data in them. That's why they were so long, because they included all of the filters.
Yep.
So with this new version, a URL would not work for another school because you've set visibility. Like the URL has changed and it now queries like a saved report in Handshake.
Correct. And
all right.
Yep. That said, as we expose visibility beyond one school into the entire network, then that URL would work. Right?
Cool. All right. Let's do one last question. How do you create a report that only you can edit? Can you still share it easily? So I think this is sort of related. If you create a report and set it to private, it's only going to be visible to you. And if you create a report and make it visible to your school, then other people will be able to see it and duplicate it. So they would, once they duplicate it, they would have the ability to edit, but they're not editing your saved version. They're editing their own version. So the best way to create a shareable report with your school is to set it to be visible to your school, and that will maintain your report as a template for others to work off of. Hopefully that answers the question. And I think we are out of time. So I know we didn't get to everybody's, but please feel free to reach out to your relationship manager, the support team. They'll be happy to help follow up with you on more questions. And we hope you found this helpful. And thanks, Jake, so much for running through the demo and answering everybody's questions.
Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great Tuesday, everyone.